welcome to Dialectics After Dark, which is the monthly bonus episode for Proles the Roundtable, which is a podcast you may have heard of.
Probably not.
We're all fried from the first episode.
Yeah. So we're recording this right after we just finished our interview with Grover Furr, and so everyone is just like completely like dehydrated, like we've lost all our fluids from like just sweating and like
crying,
just weeping, like huge communist tears. But yeah, so
Our brains have all imploded.
yeah, but so anyway, we're gonna make this happen though. So the way this usually works, by usually I mean every single time thus far, is we're gonna read some stuff from like the New York Times and the Washington Post, and then a couple other little surprises I have for the gang here.
Noise.
The gang.
And just see, we'll respond as principled Marxists, and we'll laugh, we'll cry.
The gang is exposed to revisionism.
Extremely sober still because it's still
Yeah,
too
exactly. No
young.
one's drinking. Anyway, so I'm Ethan, and I'll be reading the shitty stuff today.
I'm 8 Hop, and I'll be drinking whiskey today.
Justin and water again.
and Alex and bourgeoisie tears.
Yeah, and I have a cherry Diet Pepsi. Someone left a PBR in the fridge.
That's mine. You can have it.
I'm gonna drink it.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Comrade PVR.
And Grandpa Ethan can take a nap later.
Yeah, exactly. Beer and fall asleep on the couch watching the game. Are there any games happening today?
I think a bunch. I think there's hockey.
Probably hockey, yeah.
Yeah.
There's got to be hockey.
Can you imagine falling asleep on the couch watching a hockey game?
Yes.
During the intermissions, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just feel like it's more. I don't know. I think football is probably the boringest.
Yeah.
The
I
most-
could fall
the most
asleep to
easy
anything.
fall asleep.
Including Proles episodes.
Yeah, sorry,
that was
guys.
hilarious.
NASCAR. That's what I grew up falling asleep to.
Man, I want to talk about.
So soothing. Lullabies.
I don't know. People in Discord, Justin, were saying that they were saying baseball was like the worst sport, and I was like, you gotta stop talking about this shit, or Justin's
I
gonna
almost
come in
deleted
here.
the channel.
There's literally a picture of Fidel playing baseball. You can't call baseball the worst sport.
There's a picture of
No.
Fidel playing golf too.
Oh, shit.
Golf is the worst.
We'll
Yeah.
forgive him for that, but we won't forgive golf.
It's someone
forgive golf.
someone on our Patreon commented after we talked about Fidel playing golf before. I gotta find this comment. It was actually really interesting. No, this is from Cam. Cam commented and said, "Golf is still reactionary, even if Fidel and Che played it. Supposedly Che caddied to earn money one time." Said, "IDK if you know the story behind it, but essentially Eisenhower missed a meeting with Fidel to play golf because imperialists were mad at the land nationalization. Anyway, long story short, they were like, what the fuck is this dumbass game? And they had these pictures taken to mock him, if I recall correctly.
Nice.
They had scores of like 120 and 150 supposedly. So yeah, golf is still garbage."
Nice.
Anyway, thanks,
Decent
Cam.
joke.
Okay, so I'm not actually planning to talk about sports at all, hopefully. So
Thank God.
Yeah. Also, baseball was the working class sport. Started in streets and backfields and
I
with
think,
sticks
I
and
mean,
rocks.
the ultimate working class sport worldwide is probably soccer,
Soccer,
right? Like
yeah.
football,
Right.
football.
But also
Football,
baseball.
football is the best. American football, the worst. But baseball's up there.
Yeah, it's
I
because
don't watch any
American
sports.
American football started in colleges, though.
American football sucks.
Bourgeois.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Foot bouge. All right, all right. So I have
Bourgeois?
bouge ball.
Nice.
There we go. Nice. We got it. We got it. All right. So I am on the New York Times website, the Gray Lady,
Why would you do that?
because this is how we. Have you ever been? No, you were on the last one.
Why would anybody go to the New York Times site? Masochist.
So there's just a lot of terrible things happening right now, that like shootings, terrible abortion laws. But we try to stick to the stuff that we can at least have some sort of amusing discourse about. So, okay. So here's 53 minutes ago. Australia and the U.S. are old allies. China's rise changes the equation.
What?
So we're going to get some, oh boy. Economic geography is proving more significant than historical alliances, by Neil Irwin. All right. So to understand why the Trump administration has struggled to build a global coalition of allies in its trade war with China, it helps to understand what is happening in the rolling hills and valleys of Australia's southeast and southwest coasts. Vineyards that once made many crisp white wines and fruity red ones popular with American buyers are now also producing more austere reds favored by a segment of a rapidly expanding market of Chinese drinkers. Since 2008, Australia's wine exports to the United States have fallen 37%. Exports to China have risen 959%. So,
People's Republic of Australia win.
soon, hopefully. Well, I guess Oceania was what we. Yeah. So anyway,
It all starts with increased wine sales, and then it just goes straight downhill from there to nationalized economy.
yeah, it says
Happens quick.
it says around the globe, longtime allies are planning for a world in which the United States is no longer the economic center.
Please.
Inshallah. For all the frustrations of doing business with China, including opaque government action and allegations of intellectual property theft, the sheer logic of economic geography is proving more significant than historical alliances. This is dumb. It's talking about like, where is it? The cultural affinity with the United States remains strong. Australian and American troops fought together in World War II, and more recently in Afghanistan and Iraq. The country's intelligence agencies share some of their deepest secrets. Yeah. So this is an economics guy. He's kind of, let's see. I don't know. Basically, the U.S. is freaking out that people are not, that China is becoming a much more, if not more powerful, like economic force in the world than us getting to the same level as.
Good.
I don't know for sure, but I feel like this is a common like propaganda piece to see prior to the invasion of another country rich in resources. Because like there's the thing going on in Iran right now, in Venezuela. So I don't know. I honestly expect like another. Well, I mean, as I think anybody rightly would, another invasion of another country by the U.S.
I'm shocked they haven't done it in Venezuela, honestly. Okay. Ooh, this will be fun. Why we still care about America's founders. Despite their flaws, their struggle continues to speak to the nation we want to become.
Fuck off.
Nothing says the belief in freedom like owning slaves.
Well, so here, hold on. This is by Rick Atkinson. He starts off. There's a lot to dislike about the founding fathers and the war they and others fought for American independence.
Ugh.
The stirring assertion that all men are created equal did not, of course, apply to 500,000 black slaves. 1 in 5 of all souls occupying the 13 colonies when those words were written in 1776. Nor was it valid for Native Americans, women, or indigents.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's pointing out that, let's see, the enduring image of a yeoman farmer leaving his plow in the furrow to grab a musket on behalf of freedom is mostly mythical. And yet, the creation story of America's founding remains valid, vivid, and exhilarating. At a time when national unity is elusive, when our partisan rancor seems ever more toxic, when the simple concept of truth is disputed, that story informs who we are, where we came from, what our forefathers believed, and perhaps the profoundest question any people can ask themselves, what they were willing to die for.
What the? He didn't even answer his own question from like, what should we like about them?
Nothing.
What can we learn from that ancient quarrel? First, that this nation was born bickering. Disputation is in the national genome. Second, that there are foundational truths that not only are indeed true, but as the Declaration of Independence insists, self-evident. Third, that leaders worthy of our enduring admiration rise to the occasion with acumen, grit, wisdom, and grace. And
What?
fourth,
Literally none of them did.
I like how the country known for being like the melting pot is like has this set genome on what defines their future actions. Like, doesn't make
It's
any
kind of
sense.
funny.
and fourth, whatever trials befall us today, we have overcome greater perils. The American Revolution, oh my God. The American Revolution was not a war between regimes or dynasties, fought for territory or the usual commercial advantages.
That's exactly what it was about.
It was an improvised struggle between two peoples of a common heritage who, over decades, had been sundered by divergent values and conflicting visions of the world.
English and English.
It was a battle as always for more money,
Resources.
and private property.
I once heard Hyder make the argument that there was no American Revolution, that like it doesn't meet the criteria for being a revolution because
Oh.
the
I believe
same
it.
people
Yeah.
that were in charge, or the same structure that was in charge before, was
Yeah.
the same structure that was in charge afterwards.
believe
So
it.
Yeah.
therefore, there was only an American coup, never an American revolution.
Yeah.
that's
he
true.
perpetuated
That's true.
itself.
Nice.
Yeah.
The American Revolution is a myth.
That's
Damn.
Yeah.
So it's just talking about,
Bringing Hyder back.
Yeah,
please.
I wish.
Channeling Hyder.
Hide her back when.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just a whole long thing about. I'm trying. This is dumb. Washington, like the figure of Washington, right above. There's an image here captioned "Washington and his slaves" with Mount Vernon in the background in a lithograph for the mid 1800s.
So basically,
Yet, and then like literally right underneath that picture, yet greater responsibility enlarged him. Washington rightly embodies the sacrifice of personal interests to a greater good, as well as other Republican virtues: probity, dignity, moral stamina, incorruptibility that should remain true north for every citizen today.
this article is basically not contesting anything. It's not going against any of the ideas already. They're just admitting that they had slaves, basically. Like, yeah, all these beliefs are still valid, but yeah, they had slaves, but guess what? It was still okay. It was fine.
Yeah. Even now, the war for independence offers clues to our national temperament. It remains a bright mirror in which we see traits that fashion the American character, from ingenuity and resilience to brutality and pugnacity. We've come far in almost 2.5 centuries in power, diversity, tolerance, and sheer scale. But in some respects, those ancestors remain nearer than we know. Their existential struggles churned up issues that perplex us to this day, including individual liberty versus collective security, the proper limits on executive power, the obligations of citizenship, and the elusive quest for a more equitable society. The
And what to do with indigenous people that are in our way.
Yikes. The tacit primal question of 1776 persists in 2019. Who do we want to be?
No, but he makes an accurate point, I think. The founding fathers are really close to us because the people who are in power are just like the founding fathers. They don't give a shit.
Same rich white men.
They're rich
yeah.
white
Yep.
guys who just
Yep.
want to exploit the resources they can get. So yeah, I mean, it's true.
That's why it's important to get out there and vote, guys.
So like,
Please.
in reality, there isn't much material or philosophical difference between the prison industrial complex and the slave trade.
We
Depressed.
discussed this in depth.
And then I went to sleep. That was nice. That was a nice nap.
Yeah, fuck this. This guy wrote a book called the forthcoming book, The British Are Coming, The War for America, Lexington to Princeton, 1775 to 1777. Sounds like trash.
This
Next.
guy sounds like the exact type of boomer that would talk about like how great America is and will continue to be, but also like that millennials are ruining the country and that the country
Yeah.
can only go downhill under millennial leadership.
You know what I love? Whenever I try to talk to any boomer about why we want to fight for more equality and stuff, they're like, well, it's a lot better than it used to be. Like, as if that means that we can stop, stop fighting for it. It's better now. We knew when it was worse. And it's like, no, fuck you. You just don't want to face your terrible society and your terrible culture. They just want to be apologized for and left alone, which is why things have gotten worse, probably.
I don't want conflict. I just want free shit.
Oh, God. Okay, here's another one. A blundering Churchill, a far-sighted Roosevelt. This is by Peter Baker. I think it's a book review. Admittedly, it is a pretty geeky parlor game. Maybe one that has faded with time. But for years in many households, it provoked endless dinnertime debate. In the annals of the 20th century, who was the greater, more significant historical figure? Franklin D. Roosevelt or Winston Churchill?
Ugh.
None of the
Both
above.
trash.
Joseph Stalin.
Joseph
I'm gonna say Roosevelt because he committed less atrocities than Churchill. Churchill was like one of the greatest villains in human history.
The case for Churchill is powerful. He rallied Britain against Hitler's hordes while the rest of Europe had fallen, while the United States remained on the sidelines and the Soviet Union embraced its devil's bargain alliance with Nazi Germany.
my
damn it.
God.
Churchill virtually single-handedly defied the Third Reich in the face of the existential threat.
How many troops died in World War II with
For the Soviets?
On the,
Yeah.
on the Eastern
20
Front.
million?
20 million?
But Churchill
many
was
zeros is
personally
that?
at risk, along with his countrymen, amidst the cascade of bombs raining down on London during the Blitz.
And England was 500,000, right? thing.
Yeah, it was insignificant in comparison.
So okay. So I'm
So
It
So I'm
wasn't
gonna do
troops,
two
it was
things here.
citizens.
England committed 0.025% of the troops that the
Oh,
Soviet
shit.
Union did to fight World War II. Not even 1%.
Hmm.
But they're seen as the ones who.
so
I mean, Churchill killed more Indians than than troops were lost by times 12.
we've said this before. Everything people get mad about Stalin for doing, Churchill actually did.
Yeah.
It's a
Um,
fact.
Yeah. No, so this says Count Nigel Hamilton in Roosevelt's camp, not just in his camp, but perhaps his most passionate and eloquent champion. In War and Peace, his latest book on the American wartime leader, Hamilton presents a far-sighted Roosevelt, riding to the rescue of freedom, then setting the stage for a new world order to come. Churchill is depicted as a military dunderhead who let ego and imperial ambition get in the way of sensible strategy. Courageous? Yes. A stirring orator? Absolutely. But if not restrained by Roosevelt, Churchill, in Hamilton's view, might have easily lost World War II for the Allies. All right, I'm going to do a search here, see how many times the Soviet Union is mentioned beyond that one. That was the only time the Soviet Union was mentioned.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Oh my God. Yeah, so it's talking about... So
Just-
Hitler would
despite-
have won.
Literally doing more than 99% of the work.
Yeah.
yeah, it's bad. So this is all talking about... in Hamilton, yeah. Churchill famously said, "History will be kind to me, for I intend to write it."
Oh.
Hamilton seems intent on rewriting it. I deeply admired Churchill, he informs readers, noting without elaboration that as a college student, he proudly stayed for a weekend at Chartwell, his home in Kent, before he died. But Hamilton adds, "I do not think it unfair to his memory 65 years later to correct the record regarding his vision." Man, fuck his memory. Like, yeah. So this whole thing is...
The two most embarrassing things you can be are British or an American.
Yeah, pretty much. This is dumb. Okay, so
Because nobody
they literally
nobody
don't...
nobody needs to rewrite their own history like somebody who has committed atrocities.
Yeah. No, this is trash though. It's like, yeah, that's whatever. Like it's talking about the Allies. It's talking about that, and it literally mentions the Soviet Union one time in the context of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Yeah, it's trash. The Allies did fight on the beaches, as Churchill once memorably vowed, but it fell to Franklin Roosevelt to make sure they were the right beaches. That's how it ends. Peter Baker, the chief White House correspondent for The Times, is the author most recently of Obama, The Call of History.
Oh, God.
It's terrible. Okay. Yeah, no, this is awful. An economist who believes only government can save capitalism.
What?
Uh,
Only
Why though?
capitalism can save capitalism?
Oh, it's Joseph Stiglitz. Fuck that. Never mind. It's this geezer. All right. Whew. All right. The Royal Highness and the baby are both doing well.
Fuck off.
No, I want to hear this
Harry
content
and
now.
Meghan welcome to baby boy at Frogmore Cottage.
Fuck
What's
off.
this?
Death to the Queen.
The whole... Imagine having a royal family in 2019.
It's wild.
Imagine
and
a
then
royal
talking
family
shit
in
about
general, yeah.
the Kims.
What? Wait. So like, what does the royal family actually do?
They do nothing.
They don't do
They don't do
anything.
They're
shit.
just a
Exist.
face. Yeah,
They
they just
take-
sit
they
on
cost
wealth.
a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
The U.S. then does have like several royal families.
Oh yeah, they're just not considered royal
They're just
families.
not like, yeah, they don't literally wear crowns
But Hollywood-
and have
So
titles.
well, sometimes they do.
Rich socialites, people who don't do anything but just sit on wealth.
It's a negative labor value.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Like how much labor does it take to sustain the queen's lifestyle compared to
Can't imagine.
I remember
compared
reading
to like
somewhere
how much she provides?
I remember the queen doesn't do fucking
Interesting,
anything.
yeah.
But I remember reading an article that was talking about how much the royal family costs
Yeah,
the
I remember
UK,
that, yeah.
and it's a fucking
So,
like wild
so, like,
amount of money.
The queen contributing labor doesn't make sense because of her age, right? So like at that age, like it's
She hasn't done anything her entire fucking life. Though.
Right,
That's
right,
the thing. Even
but
when she was
like-
younger.
Like what about all of her like relatives, right? The royal relatives, like they
The royal,
what
all
labor
the dukes and
what labor do they
princes.
contribute? Because like
Well,
some
Prince,
reactionary is going to make the argument like, oh well, they organize the labor of others, but like that's or they create opportunities for labor to happen, but all they're using is somebody else's labor to ensure like more labor happens. So like, what
Yeah.
are they really doing?
They're
I know-
separated completely from production here.
Well,
Yeah.
and both the princes, they were in the UK military for a bit, so that's something they did.
Wow.
They own stuff because they own stuff. And you know, like in the military, they're like in some like stupid decision making, like which
No, they had
investors.
like there were like pictures with them like wearing the fatigues and with the gun and everything.
Well, that's fine, but that doesn't mean they were infantry, right?
No,
like,
of course not. Of course not.
Like they weren't like maintaining a tank or.
So the royal family costs the taxpayers of England,
Just England?
oh,
Or the whole
probably,
UK?
yeah, $427 million.
A year?
Yeah, annually,
Yeah,
Jesus
that's
Christ.
wild.
and it just goes up.
Very fun. Okay, so I'm gonna read an article. So this was written a few years ago, but it was just shared with me recently. Someone in Discord asked me to read this on Dialectics After Dark, and I like to do the things that our patrons ask us to do. This is in Fifth Estate, which is an online magazine. It's a blog. Imagine having a blog and calling it a magazine. No. Radical publishing since 1965. Okay. So this is called An Anarchist in North Korea, The Opposite of Freedom, A Journey to Pyongyang by Pierre Garin.
So what you're saying is that Grover Fur was correct about anarchists being not leftist but anti-communist.
Does that make them anti-leftist?
It's the
Big
big
thunk.
question.
Radical centrism. Okay, so the whole thing. All right. But as an anarchist, why visit this graveyard of freedom? What good could come of such a journey? These pointed fingers jabbed me as my plane set down in Dongdong, the Manchurian border gateway city on the Yalu River. The internet-savvy North Korean authorities Google your name to check that you're not a journalist, and if it is your first visit, they greenlight you. Let's see. I don't want to read this whole thing, but
It's a very long article.
it is
Or very
very
long
stupid.
Blog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I decided to go because it was possible. Because maybe I could, against all odds, make contact with someone on the other side and let them know there is an alternative. There's a hope of regaining their freedom, real freedom, not just the right to buy a Big Mac.
So what you're saying is that anarchism is Western chauvinism?
I had a
Holy
few.
shit.
I had a few pieces of subversive media I wanted to give away, but I knew that to be caught.
Anti-flag album?
But I knew that to be caught with something could bring heavy charges for a North Korean. I knew my presence would probably be used by the state and that my minors would be in charge every minute of my visit. Nevertheless, I bought my ticket and took a chance. Let's see.
This anarchist is the reason that these groups need to be supervised.
Yes.
Like their post is like a step-by-step guide to why they need to have this type of like enhanced security in North Korea.
Yep.
While waiting, I couldn't help but notice one of the guards tapping away on an obviously confiscated Apple IV, but the plainclothes tech gave my deck a quick check and waved me through. I later learned he was looking for Google Maps or a smart app that would give precise coordinates for the military targeting installations. That seems like when you're under attack that seems okay.
Sounds like a reach.
Oh my God. Our group had two Korean guides, a Chinese-speaking one for the 30 mainland and Hong Kong tourists, and an English one for me. Mr. Park was an alert mid-30s loyalist who would recite the approved line and verse guidance for me, but at times would reveal bits about himself. He had lived in the West, as his parents had been North Korean diplomats to some UN agency in North America. He wore the required Kim Jong-il lapel pin and referred to the new successor Kim as my general. He steered my questions about North Korean life back at me and regarded my EU passport listing a U.S. birthplace with slight suspicion. Later, he correctly outed me as being an American, at least culturally, and he spent much of the trip ignoring me, chatting instead with the female Chinese-speaking guide.
Nice.
Good.
And then he's got a whole... Oh, God. So he's got a whole section on anarchists in Korea. Anarchists thought and direct action were a potent third force in the Korean resistance to the Japanese occupation of 1894 to 1945.
Sure they were, buddy.
Yeah, so he's talking about.
So
Our
So-
guides ran. Oh, go ahead.
From the leftist perspective, right? If the right wing is trying to create the conditions for capitalism and prevent the conditions for communism, and anarchists are trying to prevent the conditions from essentially effectively any left wing movement from actually taking hold. And I'm speaking practically, right? Because like you can measurably historically prove that their tactics are ineffective and in fact counterproductive, right? So from the leftist perspective, if anarchists are preventing any sort of leftist movement from happening and right wingers are also preventing or attempting to prevent any sort of left wing movement from happening, then what's the difference?
Crap.
Oh boy. So the guide's decisions as to which Pyongyang sites we were permitted to see seemed to depend on the availability of electrical power. In one restaurant, we were led down pitch black hallways, asked to wait while the door was unlocked, and then a few more seconds until the light switch was found and the overhead bulbs flickered to life, revealing an already set table with cold kimchi and Korean starters. Official access to food, education, rank, and privilege in the North is based on class background and loyalty to the Kim cult.
Wait,
What?
In a classless society is based on class background?
In 1957, following a post-Korean War census, Supreme Leader Kim Il-sung proclaimed a permanent class system known as Songbyun, or constituent origin, which divided all of North Korean society into three groups: a loyal core class, 25% of party cadres, a wavering class, 55% of average working North Koreans, and a hostile class, 20% of former landowners, Christians, or those accused of collaboration with the Japanese or South Korean authorities.
Good.
Labels go back 3 generations and children can grow up without knowing their Songbyun.
That sounds like just an analysis, not like a division of class. He's probably just like talking about.
Author Barbara Demick, in her excellent 2009 book on daily life in North Korea, Nothing to Envy, describes Songbyun. Shangyu name dropped that book as propaganda trash. Describes Songbyun as an updated caste system, combining elements of both traditional Confucianism and 20th century Stalinism. Grandchildren of the hostile classes are said to have tainted blood, like the Indian Dalits or untouchables. Okay, so the whole thing is, this is an anarchist on North Korea. You could literally read this in the New York Times.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I think we have read articles like this on
Yeah.
previous episodes.
That just shows you like how leftist anarchist ideology is, which is
I mean,
Not.
so it's just telling this story, and it's, I hate this. Let's see.
like if you're
hold on. Okay. Making our way. This is later on. He's just talking about stars. Making our way between the carriages, the Chinese who had tried to give away the colored pencils pointed to a gap in the protective covering between the cars. He tossed his items, threw them onto the track. I pulled out the items I had hidden until now. A few leaflets from my archives, anarchist, surrealist, subgenius, all in English. Some Western DVDs with Korean subtitles, such as Game of Thrones Season 1. I thought any viewer might recognize the cruel young King Joffrey. And in a plastic slip, a copy of Anarchy Comics.
What a fucking tool, man. This guy deserves like the Otto Warmbier treatment.
This is terrible. Yeah. I had been.
this is a whole new level of adventurism.
I closed my eyes and tried to imagine a day when the long oppressed people of North Korea might overthrow the dynasty and liberate themselves without any help from the outside.
Shut the fuck up.
This is
Yep.
fucking awful.
And then they too can contribute their labor to cheap clothing and electronics.
Then I would return to the borderlands and with my slight experience, render some assistance to those stumbling out of the nightmare. I vowed never to forget the people I had seen there, and I hope your readers will not forget them either. Yeah.
Fuck
No,
off.
this whole article, like, this is like a straight up anarchist. I was looking at this thing. They're still publishing. They're publishing, like, it's an anarchist like blog. This is literally the same kind of thing, except with the introduction. Like, if you took out the few mentions of anarchy or anarchism, you could literally read this in the Washington Post or the New York Times. This is ridiculous.
Yep.
Yeah, again, like from the leftist perspective, if the only proven effective tactic is party organization coming from typically communist thoughts, right? And you have these anti-communist, therefore anti-leftist perspectives, then what's the difference between them and a right-winger?
Suggested further reading. Nothing to Envy, Barbademic. Best account in English of the 90s famine, with in-depth interviews from defectors from Chongjin, the DPRK's third largest city in the far northeast. The Orphan Master's Son by Adam Johnson, a well-researched novel in the spirit of Orwell's 1984. The Hidden Gulag, exposing North Korea's prison camps. David Hawke.
We should write like satirical articles about like the American gulags or the American United States prison camps.
It's fucked up that the North Korean prison, that the DPRK's prison camps have 22% of the global prison population. Oh shit! Sorry, I'm just receiving word that that's actually the U.S. Oh no. Oh man! And then the last thing he says: the shrill boastings of the regime can be viewed here at kcna.kp and its visuals at youtube.com/. Yeah. Wow, man, fuck this guy. Here we go. Let's do this last one from the Washington Post. Trump's critics were wrong. He's not a madman in foreign policy. By Henry Olson. Time travel with me back to 2016. Fears were rampant that Donald Trump would not be able to handle an international crisis, that he would react either recklessly or timidly and thereby hurt U.S. security. We're going through a period of intense global pressure right now, and so far he has proved up to the task.
Are we?
It's almost like the president has no influence over anything.
Take Iran's recent provocations. U.S. sanctions have started to bite, so the mullahs are saber rattling. This is awful.
How is that a good thing? Trump's policies led to that.
Ditto with respect to the Venezuelan crisis. Fears were rampant when the United States and its allies recognized interim President Juan Guaido as Venezuela's legitimate ruler, that a cowboy invasion was right around the corner. Instead, we've seen the opposite. The application of sanctions and the slow isolation of Venezuela's government and leadership haven't toppled the dictator Nicolas Maduro yet. But neither has Trump given in to the temptation to either reverse course or recklessly attack.
Yet.
Again, one can disagree with the strategy, but there is no quibbling with the tactics.
So the argument is he's dealing so well with the crises he's created. Even by reacting in the perfect center of where he should.
Even Rocket Man doesn't seem to be able to rattle Trump. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered 2 missile and weapons tests recently in a transparent attempt to coerce Trump back to the bargaining table. Trump hasn't even bothered to tweet about them. Don't worry about it. This is dumb. The scorecard looks pretty. Yeah, this is trash. He is a Washington Post. This guy's Henry Olson. He's a Washington Post columnist and a senior fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center.
When the DPRK starts doing missile and bombing runs, tests in Hawaii, then the U.S. can talk shit, because we literally do that in South Korea every single day.
Yeah, fuck. Awful. Okay.
I mean, we lived there. We lived on a bombing range in South Korea.
That's true. Listen to our previous DPRK episodes to find that out.
Yeah, I like how like having a bombing test site and entire military base just south of your border from the perspective of North Korea is like fine from the perspective of the US, right? But like the other country even owning missiles is a threat.
Offensive, yeah.
Yeah.
It's because we're the good guys. Yeah. We're the police force.
Nothing is more like consistent with the boomer ideology than
real boomer
that
hours.
type of entitlement.
Okay, so we didn't get we don't have a ton of questions to answer right now. We don't have anyone calling in. So we're gonna make this a short bonus episode, because we're gonna release the Grover Fur episode. Is gonna be on the main feed, like an extra additional episode. And then we'll also be releasing something from ProlsCon in a couple weeks. So there will be some extra bonus stuff. So I don't feel bad about this one being short. Oh yeah, it's gonna be great. But yeah, that's what we're gonna. That's for today. I was gonna prepare something about to talk about the true story behind the Hunt for Red October, but I did not have time. So
I want to hear that though.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun story. So because it was actually about they weren't trying to defect to the U.S. They were trying to start a mutiny to put a Stalinist, trying to rebel against Brezhnevian bureaucracy to bring back. And it was an anti-revisionist mutiny.
Nice.
Yeah, it was good. So anyway, that's what. Yeah, I think that's it for today. And we'll, I was gonna say we'll talk to you next month, but there will be bonus and like even just main feed content this month. Lots of wild stuff.
It's gonna be a good month.
Our minds are blown still from the Grover Fur episode. You just gotta wait for that shit to come out. But thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Solidarity forever.
Bye.
Solidarity.